www.double//you-ain't-dead-yet.com. Thank you very much. Oh no, puppy, not. Oh no, goodness me. Kick me one more time. Oh, just what that big ass. Oh my God, I can't take all that. Nasty boy. It's about time you had another hit. Go to hell. Go to hell.
All right, what's going on? How's everybody doing? There's been a lot of people talking about this subject. What happened in what's that, the Oscars, I think? And yeah, so I think I'm gonna chime in as well and give my since Will Smith. Okay, I'm gonna check out. I'm getting some news breaks here about Will Smith and Chris Rock, and it looks like Marlon Wayans, I think, might have chimed in on the incident that occurred. So we'll definitely take a look at that. All right, but yeah. So I took a look before I started listening to other people's points of view and their thoughts and observations. Actually seen the video myself, and I watched it a few times so I can get the get a look at from every angle. And then I seen the second video where you had a few people consoling Will. So I'm gonna be talking about all of that as well. And then I took a listen to a few folks chiming in on the subject, and I'm gonna be responding to all of that as much as I can remember to talk about. Definitely on the video, I'm gonna try to take my time with it. The two videos I seen, and there was some still photo that I seen as well that other people on their shows were showing. So I'm gonna try to comment on that, as well as comment on some of the comments that people were making on their particular shows. All right, so we're gonna get it in. You're listening to Thoughts of the Week. All right, you're rocking with the best Thoughts of the Week podcast. Let's get it. Okay, so now let's talk about this. Let me talk about the video of how everything went down and what I seen. Man, this might be some stuff that some of y'all might have seen, maybe some stuff you might have missed. Sometimes people can get emotional about what they look at and what they hear, and within that emotion, you end up missing a bunch of stuff. So I'm going to try to break it down. So for all the emotional watchers who watch the show, we'll maybe go back and take a look at that video. All right. So let's do it. Let's talk about this video. You had Chris Rock doing this joke, right? He cracked a few jokes beforehand. Then he went on and made his joke about Jada in regards to her hair being cut off, almost looking bald, if not bald all the way. But nonetheless, being real close, and then referring her to being in the next G.I. Jane Part 2. And then some people were laughing, and in the video, you seen Will laughing, right? You apparently see him laughing. And when the camera caught on the side, you could see that Jada had a slight smirk. When you really look at the video, she had a slight smirk for a few seconds. Then it kind of was one of those things like, you know, the girls in the hood, because Jada came from the hood. You had that kind of roll your eye, roll your head type of thing, real smooth type. And so that's what you started noticing. She went on and rolled her eyes and kind of turned her head. And then that's when the camera kind of came, you know, left them and went to Chris Rock. And even me saying that right now, it's making me wonder, because a lot of people are still wondering if it was real, if it was fake. But there's the way things were going down, it kind of gives the impression of a setup, because you have where Will laughs. They apparently show Jada a little bit for her little smirk, and then a look of disgust starts showing in her face more. And then the camera kind of pans over back to Chris. And then seconds later, here comes Will. And then he's walking up that way. And all of a sudden, Chris starts to respond to that. And he's going, oh no, uh-oh. So I guess in his mind, he thought, now that's when it could be the setup part. You're thinking that he's going to maybe do something funny or say something funny, me and Will, on camera, but he does this slap. And at face value, you're looking like, yo, is this real? Or is this fake, or part of the act? And what's interesting is after that, if you watch the video again, he does it. Will snaps him, and the slap almost looks like one of those near misses, like they train you to do in fight scenes. They train you to do certain slaps or punches or whatever, and you do it at the right way. So when the camera angle picks it up, it looks like they actually made contact. And so it kind of gives you that impression of that's what took place. And if you look back at the video again, you see after Will does it, he smiles. He has a little smile on his face, right? And then, of course, he sits down, and Chris gets ready to say something, and then, you know, Will does his thing. You know, keep my wife's name out of your fucking mouth. He says that a couple of times. And then Chris is like, I will. And then there's the awkward moment of silence. And that's when you can start looking at it and wondering if that was actually real, because Chris's demeanor had changed. And he had a different look on his face, like, yo, is anybody going to intervene? Are we going to go to a break? Something like that. And the whole audience was kind of quiet about it. And then you also notice something interesting when Will started telling him, you know, keep his wife's name out of his fucking mouth. You seen Lapita was sitting next to Will. You could watch the expression on her face. At first, you might have thought it looked like she thought, like, hey, maybe this is part of the thing. And then she was like, oh, this might not be stage. This might be the real thing. And she kind of had a different demeanor on her face, right? So that's pretty much the extent of the video. I'm trying to think if I noticed anything else from that video, but you can see Chris's face was like, you know, he started getting like real serious, and stuck. And then, of course, his comment at the end, or, you know, as he was continuing on, he said, we're here to present a documentary, where he meant to say an Oscar. He corrected himself and saying an Oscar. So that really must have messed him up, because it messed his train of thought up as far as what he's supposed to be saying. Or if he was looking at a teleprompter, he probably messed up reading it. So that's what makes people think it probably was a real thing. Those are one of the things you can probably look at and say, yo, this might have been a real thing and not a stage, because, yo, that kind of messed him up. That messed Chris up, because he messed up what he was supposed to be saying. All right. And another thing about the video, if you really look, take another look at it, after Chris got slapped, you could see he was about to ball his hand up, and maybe thinking there was going to be another blow coming back, he was going to start swinging back, right? If you look at the video again, peep out what I'm saying. When he got slapped and it kind of moved him back to the side a little bit, he was starting to come back. His hand looked like he was getting ready to ball his hand up, as if to start punching. And then another thing was when he commented and said, man, I could, and he didn't finish his sentence. Now, I don't know what he would have completed his sentence with. I don't know if you could have completed it with, I could knock him out, or I could bust shots on him, or I could have shot him. We don't know what he would have finished saying, or I could have sued him, or I could send him to jail. We don't know. But take a listen to all those little small details of the video and what was being said. All right. And that's something you'll pick up. So let me see. I'm trying to think if there's anything else before I go on for the next thing I saw. I think that was it. And I'm gonna tell you this. When Will was telling Chris, keep my wife's name out of your fucking mouth, and then Chris was like, forgot what he said in response back. And then Will repeated it again. Of course, they had the camera on him, and he almost looked like he was in a daze, like in a trance to me. I've seen those familiar looks in people's faces, as opposed to like after he said it the first time, then Chris responded. Then he could have said some things in between first, like, nah, that was stupid of you, or something like that. And then he could have repeated the same thing again. The same comment the second time. Keep my wife's name out of your fucking mouth. But it was almost like he was in a trance and said it in a trance pattern type of way to me. Or at least that's something I picked up on. And it brought questions to me for him saying that, and then the look on his face. It was almost like somebody put him under hypnosis, or what some people might say MK Ultra, or the Manchurian Candidate, however you want to throw it in there. But it looked as though he was under a little something. He could have just been emotional and got like that. Sometimes people get heated or emotional and they just kind of black out a little bit, or a lot of it, depending on what's what. And you just kind of stay in that same frame. So it was just, but it definitely was something I noticed. So you guys watch that again and see what I'm talking about there. All right. And the other part of that, before I move on to the other video I seen, we don't know what Jada did once the camera, came off of them and went back to Chris after Chris made his joke. He made his joke. Will started laughing. Jada looked like she had a little quick smirk, and then started rolling her eyes, like whatever, and like she was getting upset, right? And then it disappeared off of her, went back to Chris. We don't know if Jada looked at Will funny, You know how you can say something without opening your mouth? We don't know if that was the case, right? And she looked at Will, and then maybe he was like, man, I'm gonna be hearing this. I'm gonna be hearing a lot of nonsense from her when we get home. Let me just go over here and do something. And did what he did, because the situations they're going through, as we all know, is not on the hasn't been on the up and up. So that's the situation that's going between them. All right, so we don't, that's another part of that. We don't know what was being said, if anything was being said or done, or how she looked at him. That could have been the trigger, right? And I'm going to speak a little bit more on what I'm saying in between that and the next video I'm going to get ready to talk about, and connecting the trance, being in a trance type thing, or the MK Ultra type thing. I'm going to explain why. Okay. So let's get into that next video. Now, the next video that I seen was the one where they had Tyler Perry and Denzel consoling Will, right? We're going to talk about that particular video. Okay. Now, and there's a lot of things to talk about in regards to that video. And I'm going to talk about the still pictures that I seen, that I can remember seeing after that. I think it was 1 or 2 still pictures regarding that. So the video I seen starts with, apparently it was Tyler Perry and Denzel kind of consoling Will, right? I must have been like a little break or an intermission type thing. And so everybody was kind of scrambling, people walking around a little bit. And it looks like Tyler Perry was saying something to Will, and Denzel was saying something to Will. And they were kind of dusting him off a little bit, hand on the shoulder, trying to give him, try to talk to him, right? And then I think Tyler Perry walks off, but Denzel is still talking to Will. They're still standing there. And then eventually they start walking back, because I guess there's a timer for when they're going to start the recording of the show again. And so I guess it was getting close to that time where everybody had to sit back down. And what you notice is, I guess Will starts walking, Denzel walks. I guess they kind of branch off. And then what I found interesting, I don't know who this dude was, but when Denzel sits down, a white dude comes into play. I don't know if he was another actor. I don't know if he was an executive or just a friend of them in the Hollywood circles. But he comes up to Will, and whatever gets discussed with them, he discusses with Will, gives him a hug, pats him on the back. Will pats him, the white guy, back. And then the dude kind of puts his hand on his shoulder, on Will's shoulder again, and says, looks like he's saying something to him, what we don't know. And that was the part that made me think, I wonder if this dude is one of the potential handlers, or the trigger person that could snap him out of whatever trance he was in, right? Or to keep him in a certain trance and say some other words and put him in another mode. Now, I'm gonna veer off just a little bit and talk about a show that kind of pulls in what I'm talking about. Maybe you guys can find it again on YouTube. But there was if you guys remember Jesse Ventura, he had a show, a series. I forget the exact name of it, but he had a series of different, I think it was some type of conspiracy show, right? And then there was one episode where he wanted to show, or maybe some guy said you can actually that they can program soldiers to do what they want them to do in the battlefield, right? And so what they did was they had this guy, I guess you kind of hypnotized in a way, was hypnotizing this dude, and he told I think he told Jesse what he was going to do to the guy, and without the guy knowing what was up, what he was going to do to the actual participant, or it might have been an actual soldier or retired or something like that. But basically what happened was that I think he told Jesse, hey, look, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to program him or put him in a trance and make him walk with a limp, because this guy did not have a limp, right? And then he said he's going to, at a certain time, he's going to call the dude on a phone or something to that effect. And then at a certain time, he was going to call the dude back and say another code word to the dude, and the dude's going to snap out of whatever trance he was in, hypnosis or whatever. So he's going to put him in some type of trance, hypnotize him or whatever, and make him walk with a limp. And this guy doesn't have a limp, doesn't walk with a limp. So the dude called the guy and told him whatever code word he used. And then Jesse was talking to the guy, and all of a sudden, after the dude hung up his cell phone, the dude started walking with a limp, and Jesse noticed. And then after a few minutes later, the guy calls the dude back and says whatever code word that he used on the guy. And then he called the dude, said whatever the code word was, and then the dude stopped walking with a limp. He started walking straight again. And so that's why I say, I wonder if somebody put Will in an actual trance and made him do that. And then when that white dude that came to him on that other video, put his hand on Will's shoulder, and all of a sudden, I guess Will kind of went back to his seat and chilled. So that's why I say I wonder if he was under one of those MK Ultras or under those hypnosis, and it was all a setup. Because again, we're talking about Hollywood, and they do a lot of weird stuff, and they get into a lot of weird things. So that's the one thing that I kind of question, because I know stuff like that does happen and has happened or hasn't been insinuated that has occurred before. And so I wonder if that was the situation. Did they put somebody beforehand, put them under some little hypnosis and triggered him, knowing whenever Chris, because you could say, well, when Chris says this joke, you're going to do this. And just like I said, that show that Jesse Ventura had, it was one of those episodes, he had something similar to that. And so I wonder if that was the case in this situation, right? But so you guys look at that video again and see what I'm talking about there. But then let's move on. In the video, like I said, the white guy talks to him after Denzel and Tyler Perry talked to him. Denzel walks to his seat. Tyler Perry kind of walks towards the stage, and then the white dude comes up, gives him a pat on the back, give him a hug, and then he puts his hand on his shoulders again and starts whatever he said. Of course, you couldn't hear what he was saying because the camera distance was too far away. But he says something to Will, and then eventually Will gets ready to sit down. And then in the video, I noticed Denzel gets up from his seat where he was sitting next to his wife and goes back over there where Will was sitting at, and kind of, I think he stands or kneels down behind Jada. And then a white lady comes and kind of pats Will on the back, another consoling moment. And then somebody else comes out the crowd or comes in nearby and kind of does a similar thing. All right. And then I think that's kind of where that video kind of ends. All right. So now let's talk about the still photos that I seen anyway. I'm sure it's out there now. And you have In one of the still photos, I think they show again where Tyler and Denzel was standing next to Will, right? And so that's one still photo, and I think that's based off the video, but it was more like a more close up, so you can probably see who actually Will was talking to. And I think that was Tyler and Denzel for sure. Then there's another still photo where Denzel is standing between Chris Rocky's on stage, and you can see Jada sitting and Will sitting down. So he's kind of between standing up, Denzel standing up between Jada and Will, and Chris is on the stage, and it looks like, Denzel was facing Chris Rock, as to probably say something to him. And I think maybe what they was trying to do is calm the situation down and make sure it didn't elevate to something further, right? So that's that part. And then, like I said, there's a lot of things that can be said just about that in particular. Just about that and the still or the video of Tyler and Denzel talking to him. Now, you're going to have a lot of people will be saying stuff like, I'm trying to remember what I've been hearing and seeing in the comments. A lot of people are into this saying, oh, Will was this, he was wrong. And it seems like it's a thing for not letting, and I said, I'm already told people in the beginning of this, I'm going to go in a lot of different directions with this. A lot of people are into this thing where if it's a black man doing something, they got to chill and be calm about it. But if it was somebody else outside of being black, then they're going to be looked up as stand-up men and they did the right thing. And so that's kind of the direction some people were going into in regards to that. Oh, let me hit this message. I'm sorry. I didn't know you had to send a message there. Let me hit it.
Oh, what's up? I watch the 411 earlier about the blood pressure medicine. When I get a chance, I will definitely leave a comment and a like on YouTube.
All right, appreciate you, Dr. Love Spell, for the message. I already did it. I guess it's 4 minutes long, so yeah, you could be able to listen to that, and then you could click the video and get more details on that. I did a news brief on the Pfizer's blood, recalling the blood pressure medicine, and also in that video, I put a link because they listed all the what they call lots of all the recalled medicines. So you'll be able to click the link and you'll see which medicines they're talking about, the actual numbers of them or whatever. So in case you know somebody who's taking it when it is, and they'll know exactly which medicine it is. All right, let me hit this message again.
I did. I watched it already.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the water. You was talking about the water and the foods and yeah, the grill meat.
Yep. Yeah. So I wonder if that was a mistake that they put that in that news or not, or did they do that on purpose? Because I found that pretty interesting that they would put that information in along with what's going on with that blood pressure medicine. So yeah, I found that really interesting that they would tell that. And the fact that I said that, within the recent years, I say 10 years at best, and maybe more, you just started noticing there's been more cancer cases out the blue. And people were trying to figure out, what's going on? A bunch of people constantly catching cancer, and not everybody is smoking. So that might be the whole key right there. That might be the whole entire key. What's been going on has been put in the food, which people always been saying, you got to watch the food you eat, and they're trying to kill folks through the food, through the air, through the water, through the medicines and all that. So yeah, I found that interesting that they actually had that in there. And I'm wondering if they thought people would catch on to that information. So, yep. All right, well, let me get back on track, and I appreciate you, Dr. Love Spell, for checking that out. I wonder how many people do listen to some of my replays. I can understand the long ones. That's why I do these. I do some short ones too, so people can come back, listen to them, and then they can kind of follow up by clicking the links and stuff and seeing the video. But let's get back on track. So, what I was saying is that a lot of things can be taken, I guess, in some ways, good and bad from it, by looking at the stills and the videos where you've seen Denzel and Tyler Perry, I guess, consoling, if at best word to use, I guess. And then the still photos where you've seen Denzel kind of standing in between Jada and Will, who was sitting down, and then the stage where Chris Rock was standing at. I guess he was trying to tell Chris Rock something as well. And that could be looked at in a positive light, as far as here you got other brothers trying to calm down other brothers. So in that sense, that's cool. That's, upstanding type of thing. You got brothers looking out for each other and trying not to amp up the situation or hype it up. They're trying to resolve the situations. And those are the things a lot of people don't talk about amongst Black men a lot of times. And then now let's look on some other things as well. When people were saying about Will slapping, I even commented on somebody's Twitter post about him slapping, but that seems to be Will's MO, is he'll slap somebody, whether hard, soft, or whatever, as opposed to punching somebody and knocking them out or trying to or whatever. And you got some people saying he was a simp. Some people saying he was soft. I say, or what I commented on was the fact that, okay, because there's a lot of directions you can go in this lane. And you have him walking on stage, and then he goes and slaps Chris Rock. And again, some people say it was fake, staged. Some people say it wasn't. Right? As opposed, like if he's dissing his wife, you'll go there and that's as far as you go, slap somebody. And then later on, when he does his speech, he says, towards the end, like, well, I hope the Oscars will bring me back. But my thing was, and I'm sure probably some people may agree, some people might disagree. I was like, well, number one, all right, somebody said something disrespectful to you, and in front of you, in front of TV, and probably millions of people going to see the video online and stuff like that, in front of the cameras. And so all as far as you go, it's a slap. Then you worried about later on about whether or not they're going to bring you back. If you was a real G, you just go up there and try to knock dude out and leave it at that. You could go sit back down or walk out or whatever and not worry about whether somebody going to ask for you to come back to an Oscars, when there's the real truth be told, Black folks got enough money or whatever, you can create your own damn Oscars. So why worry about whether or not they was going to bring you back? So that was kind of my thought on some things. Another thing I was looking at or thinking about, I said, I wonder, because Jada Pinkett, and I'm gonna talk about Jada in a second too in regards to this, but I was wondering, Jada Pinkett been on her Red Table Talk. Of course, she's been on her Red Table Talk talking stuff, and Tupac's been mentioned a lot. Will's been asked about Tupac and what he thought about their relationship, and so I bet you that was another thing on his mind. I'm wondering, I get a feeling that was something else on his mind. Like this chick, if it was Tupac, he probably would have got up there and knocked Chris out what would I do? What would Tupac do? That's what kind of that's one of the comments I put. I put WWPD. What would Pac do? In one of the Twitter comments. So I said Will was probably thinking, what would Pac do in that situation? And then went up there and did that. So that was another thing that crossed my mind. Another thing that crossed my mind was I've watched, I think he has some videos out where him writing his new book. I guess his book came out recently. And some of the videos, as he was writing his book, I guess he was recording his journey on writing the book. He talked about an incident that happened to his mom with his mom and dad, in regards to his pops hitting his mom when he was younger. And then apparently, I think he didn't do anything or something to that effect, or wish he did or didn't. And so for years, Will said that he thought that his mom thought he was a punk. So this has been sticking in him since he was a kid. And I think he's been having a life where there was times where he was supposed to be protecting someone in his family or friends, and he didn't do it. And it's been going on in his life for years. And so I think that was another thing that just came to a head, because you have this incident happening with Chris Rock. And maybe all these things that just triggered him, all that stuff that was in his heart and his mind for all these years that he was holding in. And I remember seeing that video because he was talking with his mom and kind of explaining the stuff he was writing in the book. And he sat down with his mom. He couldn't sit down with his dad anymore because his dad had passed some years back. But they played some previous old videos to kind of let you know what his dad was thinking or whatever. But he sat with his mom and he's like, yeah, Mom, you remember when such and such happened? X, Y, and Z happened? And she, she was shaking her head like, yeah. And he was like, well, I thought you probably thought I was a punk for not doing anything all these years. And she told him, like, that's not what I was thinking. I didn't think you was a punk. And she was like, wow, I didn't realize you ever felt that way. So he was holding something in for years all along. And this incident is just what drew it out of him. Maybe. Right. He just had enough. And, you just blow up. And I say to people a lot of times when I hear a lot of different things, I always tell them, man, what happened in your childhood? Even in relationships, when I be hearing women say certain things, if they have a certain feeling about dudes or whatever, I said, something happened to you when you was younger. Whether it was younger and dating somebody, it could have been a few years or what. But you need to resolve that. And once you can resolve that, your relationship's probably going to end up getting better. Or whatever happened during your childhood, if you resolve it and however you decide to resolve it in, then you're going to feel better about it. And maybe this thing here might have been one of them things that just, like I said, came to a head, and Will just felt like, yo, I'm just going to go ahead and do what I got to do. Or it just could have been the fact that he didn't want to hear no more shit after he went home. And when Jada would have started saying something to him like, see, you ain't do a damn thing. Chris cracked the joke, blah, 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 blah. Right? It could have been that situation. But now let's talk about Jada. Let's talk about Jada. This woman has dissed this dude for a few years, a couple of years at best. It could be longer, right? And so, the situation with August Alsina, the singing dude, and then I think there was an incident with Rick Ross. And we don't know what happened. We don't know if Will stepped to them, but the impression or what it looks like is that he didn't. We don't hear nothing about it. We haven't heard if he spoke to them on the side or whatever. But then he finds it that he can run up there on Chris Rock and hit him, right? So that's another dynamic of the situation. Like, why he ain't stepped to them dudes And then the fact that she did him the way she did him for a few years. And that wasn't cool, right? That's a dynamic to look at. All right. That's another dynamic to look at as far as what she's done and what she said in public to embarrass him. Although people are claiming or saying that Will did the same thing, he's cheated on her, but apparently it wasn't a thing where it wasn't put out there or he got caught or anybody said actually who was who did what, right? So that's another dynamic of that. And then it's rumored that Will and homeboy that used to be what's her name? Not Tachina Arnold, but the other chick on Martin, the light-skinned chick on Martin. I forget her name, her real name. But she was the light-skinned girl on the Martin show, was married to Dwayne Martin. And it was said that Will and him have some sexual relationships. So there you go. That's the kind of Hollywood secret, one of the Hollywood inside secrets going on between them, right? So there's, like I said, there's a lot of dynamics put into play regarding that. And that could have been all triggers for Will. Could have been, the disrespect he's been receiving in the last few years with Jada's entanglements. And then she's trying to justify and be cool. Like, yeah, that's all good. And so all these things could have been hitting him in the head to, trigger him to do what he did. So these could all be all these situations thrown in the mix. All right. So now let me see what other comments are being made. Then, of course, I think Diddy had got on stage and said something. So again, when you hear other black folks saying, "Oh, you black men, all y'all do is fight, fight, fight," but here you have some brothers trying to resolve the situation. So on the surface, that looked real cool. That was good, right? That was real cool and it was real good. That was a good look. Okay. But then on the flip side of that, some people are saying Will was a simp for doing that. He was a sucker. They don't understand why black men gotta be so violent. But on the flip side of that, you can look at it from the standpoint of, he's standing up for his black woman. The same thing that a lot of black women and some black men be saying black men don't do. And so there's a lot of talk out there, but it can go in different directions, depending on how you want to look at things, right? They were saying that he wouldn't do that to an LGBT person telling a joke. He wouldn't have walked up there if some white guy told a joke about his wife, or an LGBT male or female would have said something about his wife. And then what's a good question to ask is, what if it was a white man that said a joke about Jada Pinkett? Maybe something similar or exactly the same. Would Will went up there to that white man and slapped the shit out of him? Right? That's another question mark floating in the air. What if it was somebody that wasn't black? A white dude, an Indian dude, an LGBT person telling the same joke? Would he would have stepped to them in the same manner? Right? So that's something to think about as well. It's another dynamic to throw in that mix. Okay. Now let me think about, I guess I was saying what I've been hearing people comment on. But I can understand that you want to stand up for your wife. You're still married. But there's a part of me also saying, she did you kind of dirty. And again, it could have been a thing. Well, he did something dirty. She did something dirty. That's their own business. Her dirtiness was more out in the public, and his wasn't. So if that's how he wants to deal with it, cool. It could be looked at it like that can be a direction or a frame of mind or a school of thought to look at it in, right? That could be a school of thought to see it as, or it could be seen as, yo, your woman did you dirty, man. You shouldn't even have to be standing up for somebody doing you fucked up like that, right? That can be another dynamic of the situation as well. Another outlook, another school of thought, another angle to look at it in, right? So yeah, I'm trying to think of something else here that I can remember. I talked about the still photos and the different angles you could take on that. I talked about the videos, but yeah, just go back and watch those videos. If you can find the still photos, look at those as well. And like I said, I looked at those videos in detail. I looked over it several times to see who was doing what, how people were looking, what the camera was doing. It almost seemed like the camera was at the right place at the right time, which kind of makes it seem suspect of it being staged. And then, like I said, you know, a lot of these acting schools, or even while you're on set, you have these trainers that can teach you right on the set of you filming a movie how to do a particular strike and make it look real good on the screen. And you're not actually hitting the person. It just looks like that. Between you doing it correctly and then the camera angles can make it all look good. And so, was that a whole thing? Was it all a setup and they still just holding on to, they're still keeping the stage thing going all the way to now? And then there was a thing that I haven't found anything on the news as of yet that the police department up there, because they said they stepped to Chris real quick. It was like, yo, you want to prosecute? Because, you know, that was apparently on air, on camera, being shown. And so, and for what I'm hearing, I haven't read anything myself, but what I'm hearing is that Chris is like, nah, I don't want to do all that. And some people are applauding that, saying, you know, he's a stand-up dude. And maybe he was thinking, yo, maybe I did do something wrong or say something wrong, out of place, whatever, right? And so maybe that's another direction they was looking at as far as that. Now, another thing to talk about real quick before I go, I'm trying to think of everything I can put in this mix before I leave out of here, was that another thing was being said about one angle is, well, yeah, you're supposed to stand up for regarding black men. You're supposed to stand up for, you know, when somebody's dissing your woman, disrespecting your woman, and you ain't gonna let things go. But then on the flip side, it's like if you're the comedian and you say something, and Chris seen Will coming to the stage, so at the flip side of that, you should be able to stand behind your joke and get ready to throw them hands yourself as a comedian. So you better have some hands, even if you're a comedian. But, you know, this time Chris didn't do it. But that's another aspect of looking at it from that direction, that angle, is that, yo, if I tell a joke and somebody come up there and seeming like they don't like it, I'm going to be ready to throw my hands. You ain't going to come up here trying to swing on me. As opposed, and you know, it can go both ways. Yeah, I'm standing up for my woman, but okay. But I'm a comedian and I'm gonna stand up for what I'm saying in my joke. You're not gonna come up here and do that. And there's been some videos where there's been some comedians, you know, people will walk on the stage and some comedians threw some hands on some folks, not necessarily because they didn't like a joke or something, but maybe they wanted to come up there and be disrespectful. And there's been I want to say DC Young Fly was one of them. That somebody walked on the stage one time and he gave the dude, DC Young Fly gave whoever this dude was that came on stage, gave him them hands. So as a comedian, should you be ready to throw them hands when somebody don't like a joke you're saying? And then it just be them just on the ground or standing up, getting a fight on, Will and Chris, right? So that's another dynamic of it. And then finally, unless something comes to mind, again, as I say this, but man, I just had it on my mind. Hold on. Oh man, I just lost it that quick. So let me just kind of go back. Let me think back a little bit. I did say with Chris or whatever comedian, be ready to throw them hands in case somebody didn't like the joke. You got to be ready to throw them hands. All right. And of course, Will, man, I had it on the tip of my tongue, and I hate to get out of here because as soon as I finish this, I'll probably think it's thought to come to me. Let me think. I don't know for sure. But y'all make sure y'all check out the video. Go back to what I was saying and check it out again. Look at it a little bit more detailed. And you guys will see what I'm talking about. Maybe you have a different look. All right. I'm going to get on out of here, man. I hate that because I get the feeling I'm going to get on out of here. And then that thought is going to come to me. I just had it on the tip of my tongue. I'm just trying to think back. Oh, there, I got it now before I get out of here. Now, you know, Chris Rock's brother, I forget his name. He ain't no joke. He'll be ready to throw some hands. One of Chris's brothers. And also, I think they're from Brooklyn. And so I wonder if there's going to be something that gets a little bit heated in the news. I don't know, somebody from a Brooklyn representative might come see Will, or they end up getting some type of threats or something to that effect. We don't know. Because there might be some people from New York that might not be feeling that. And somebody might step to Will and see if Will want to slap them. So this thing could elevate. And we don't know. And maybe if the word gets out to Chris about something of the potential of that happening, maybe Chris will come out. You might find him coming out on the news or news report stating that he's gonna, whatever he says is gonna be directed towards like keeping things calm. Whether he directly says nobody's gonna come out and see Will, or I'm not gonna send nobody out, or I'm not gonna go see Will. Or he might say that, you know, he spoke to Will privately and they discussed their situation and everything is cool. That way it'll keep the dudes who might want to see Will. And maybe the Philly people who might want to see Chris. You know, other people, you can't control what they think or how they're going to respond. And so, you know, they might get on the news, they might come out publicly and try to squash that. So the Brooklyn heads and the Philly heads won't decide to come out and try to see either one of them, right? So that's another dynamic to kind of pay attention to and to see if that pops off, if anything will even be said about it, right? So I think that's it, man. I think we covered some things, covered a lot of different angles. And let me know what you guys think, man. You can DM me on the Stereo app. You can send a message on Fanbase. I'm also be putting this on Fanbase as well, if I got to break it down in parts, depending on how long this has been. And you can also check it out on YouTube, Facebook. You can comment on what you think about this whole situation. All right. So I appreciate y'all for coming in. Thank you, Dr. Love Spell, for your coming in, checking me out a little bit, and let me know about the news brief I did as well. So for those who don't know, you guys can go to the YouTube channel, What's the 411 News? And the way you can identify it's that particular channel, you see like a purplish globe of the world, and it'll say What's the 411 with a question mark and exclamation point. So you know that is the channel, the right channel. And you can see the news briefs that I've been doing lately. And the one that Dr. Lovespell came in on was the Pfizer recalling the blood pressure medicines. All right. It's something you guys need to really watch and pay attention to what I'm reading, because it might be telling it might be open a whole can of worms up to something bigger, to the reason why there's been a lot of higher cancer deaths in the last 10 years, going higher. I believe it'll reveal something really that people have been saying about, but I think they got a little details about it. All right. So I appreciate y'all, man, for checking this episode out of Thoughts of the Week podcast. And you definitely rocking with the best thoughts of the week. And I'm out of here. Peace.
Go to the website below to purchase this beat. Go to the website below and purchase this beat. Go to the website below and purchase this beat.
Yeah.